Okay, so I'm very happy today to introduce David Zhang. So David has a lot of experience in the retail industry, especially in China. He studied in Europe, so he has a great understanding of Western culture and the English language, which is very useful. And he's been instrumental in taking SPAR successfully into the China market. David, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Anthony. I'm very happy to be here answering some interesting questions of yours to help people to understand what we are doing here in China, knowing more about our event. Thank you, Anthony, for organizing this interview.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. So firstly, could you just give us a brief introduction into how you've come to do what you're doing? You're currently you run one of the leading companies in category retail management in China, working with all the leading retail chains across China very successfully. So what's been your journey and your story to bring you to where you are today?
Well, that's a long story. We can go back to as long as 26 years ago when I first went to study in the Netherlands. I was completely unaware of the advancements of food retailing around the world at that time. But I was very lucky to have met my faculty supervisor, Professor Fredonakowski, in the Dutch University, and he guided me to know this fascinating world of food retailing. Then after completion of my program in the university, I could only think of food retailing as a future career development. So I joined Macro, the Dutch cash and carry wholesale company in the Netherlands, and before long I was sent back to China to join the team for the very ambitious development in China. Well, that started my career with this food retailing. But after a few years, Macro suspended its expansion in China, suspended the program. Then I got a chance to join a local Chinese food retailer when I first started to help Chinese retailers to learn those modern ways of managing the business, which is about category management and other new ways of managing the business more efficiently, especially with the category management. I tried hard to push it, but it seems it didn't work out at that time. After another few years, I left that Chinese company and then joined CCFA, China Chain Store and Franchise Association. I was responsible for managing the academy of CCFA at that time, which focused particularly on category management. But it still didn't work. That's my story in the early stages with the category management. But in 2003, I got a chance to talk to SPAR International. At that time, China was just ready to join WTO, World Trade Organization. And I saw that there will be a lot more communications for Chinese business and the outside world. Then I thought that SPAR would be one of the best connections that Chinese retailers can have internationally. So I went to Amsterdam and met Dr. Gordon Campbell, the managing director of SPAR International at that time, and talked to the SPAR team about the future of China for SPAR. They believed me, and they sent Mr. Tobias Wasmuth to China, and then we started the whole story of SPAR in China. I worked for more than 10 years with the SPAR International, helped to build the link of the first SPAR members in China. Then after my 10 years working with SPAR, then I thought that it would be appropriate for me to get myself retired and work in a different way. A different way means I think I spent less time in my everyday work. So I started working with Global Gap as their only Asian board member. They've got 8 board members. The other 7 persons either from Europe or the US. I was the only one from China, from Asia. I thought that I could do something for the food safety in China. Then in the meantime, I took Chinese retailers to Europe and the US more frequently. And then this ended up in one of with one of our trips to Europe. We discussed the future of food retailing in China, how to better manage the business. Then we talk about category management. That brought me back to something that I tried but did not succeed 20 years ago. And then after this 20 years, the Chinese retailers, I think, more, let's say, motivated to learn category management, to utilize the category management method in the business. And then I got myself helping them together with Dr. Brian Harris, the father of category management, since 5 years ago. And this new start, the relationship with category management has made me very busy in the last 5 years. And then I got the network of these buyers and merchandisers from a Chinese food retailers growing every day. And people are learning really fast. So my current work is a consultancy and training of this category management in China. That's how I came through in 25 years time, more than 25 years time.
That's amazing. Thanks so much for sharing that. It's a really amazing experience you've had. Can you tell me a little bit about SPAR entering the China market? I mean, because we know Tesco, you know, they tried and they kind of failed really from the UK. And Tesco is a brand which, you know, a supermarket brand in the UK, which we would just see as the big players that could almost never fail in something that they do. So it's amazing to think they went to China and they really didn't succeed in the way they probably thought they could. How did you make it work with SPAR to make that a success for them?
Well, I think the success of a SPAR partly because of the formula. SPAR doesn't operate stores on their own. Let's say the SPAR International team in Europe. SPAR is a network of wholesalers and retailers working together to share a brand. So when you see SPAR around the world, they actually are not owned by a single person or organization. They're owned by many different wholesalers. I think 40 to, I think 70 to 80 wholesalers around the world. That's a SPAR brand. So I think SPAR International doesn't own SPAR China. It's the other way around. SPAR China jointly owned SPAR brand with other SPAR partners around the world. That's a SPAR. That's the special strength of SPAR. They try to build up this brand and then facilitate the communications and exchange of knowledge of SPAR partners around the world. Let's say SPAR UK consists of 5 or 6 SPAR partners, wholesalers, let's say, basically. When SPAR started in China, it uses the almost the same formula in a way that the developer SPAR members in China, those SPAR members are mostly Chinese-owned food retail chains. In China, we didn't start with wholesalers. We start with the store chains. For example, the first SPAR partners in China was in Shandong, Jiajiayue. They own like, I think, 300 to 500 stores today. They own the stores. But anyway, they got a license from SPAR International to use the brand. That's the SPAR way of developing their brand in China. In the meantime, they also joined, I mean, the SPAR China people also joined the international network to exchange information, knowledge, and sometimes merchandise with each other. That's the SPAR way. Yeah, I think it's compared with Tesco, it's a completely different way of developing their business.
No, that sounds it sounds great. It's very interesting because I know in a lot of businesses, it doesn't matter what industry, going into China can produce so many challenges for international businesses, with culture, with the different consumer habits, with everything, buyer behavior, the way partnerships work, that often having a localized approach and doing it that way is going to give you far more chance of success. With that in mind, from the perspective of a food and drink or an alcohol brand that's looking to enter China successfully, what do you think would be the key things they would consider? With your experience of the Western world and the Chinese world, what do you think are the key things, the differences they should take into consideration?
Well, I think first you need to be practical. I say being practical means that you've got to spend some time, spend enough time. That's a lot of time in China with the Chinese people, getting to know your partners, really knowing your partners. Gradually build your knowledge of the Chinese customers, your partners, and the way the Chinese deals with their clients, their partners, the way of Chinese that working together. I mean, in the last 20 years, I've brought many Chinese retailers to the US or Europe to see how people are doing the job there. You know, the most impressive most of those first impressions of Chinese food retailers when they were brought abroad was not about the difference. The most amazing thing they found is the similarities. You know, those things that make British people happy are similar to Chinese. When the Chinese retailers found those similarities, they are very happy. People want to know each other well. I mean, Chinese look different, but inside the heart and the soul, there were not much differences. Taking time, getting to know them well, then you'll find a way of dealing with them. That's very important, to spend time. Second, I think you need to, if you look into China as a future of your, let's say, of a market of your product or whatever, you need to think big, really big. You need to think really big, much bigger than I think you've ever thought in other countries. This is not only about the, let's say, the size of the population, but also about the diversity of Chinese. Like if we say Chinese food, if you have some experience, you know, in China, there is no single concept can be called Chinese food. They eat differently. They see food in completely different ways. There were many different, let's say, dialects of Chinese. When I travel in China on the train, if I overheard somebody talking in Cantonese or Hakka or those small dialects, I couldn't figure out what they talk, what language they use, what dialect they use. But when I was traveling in Europe, at least I can have some sense of, yeah, they're talking in French, they're talking in German. You know, in China, I can get myself completely lost. But all those differences, I mean, the diversities of the Chinese, it comes together with something they share in common. There's something of the history, you know, culture. Um, yeah, that's what I mean. That if you think of China, you need to think big, really big. Once your product or your brand accepted by the Chinese consumers, it can be really huge, huge potentials, uh, much bigger than any other countries around the world. I think this is a very big difference. Uh, the third point, the third advice I would like to give is that the brand positioning of your product in your home country, either in Europe or UK or the US, um, can be very much different in China if you develop well. Repositioning, try to be ready to repositioning your brand in China. For example, the Aldi store, the German discount, food discount Aldi, when they started open stores in China, people thought that it's an up-end food store. When they see those imported food products brought in from Australia and some other country, they see this really a high-end food store. Um, if you see the level of economical development uh, and other let's say factors, when you develop your brand in China, you need to be ready to reposition it. The last point I want to make is like this: marketing from the culture side. Marketing is something I think like a foreign language to Chinese. Chinese are not good at marketing, they modern marketing. So if you want to develop your let's say your future in China, you've got to take a lead with marketing. You don't wait for the Chinese. You learn from the Chinese, but you need to take lead to do marketing. It can be very effective out of the expectation of Chinese. I mean, um, you need to outperform marketing. Um, it's an area that you need to have special emphasis to bring your product to really let's say um, a, a a uh, in a position that you can be effective communicated with the Chinese consumers. Yeah.
Amazing. That's really good insights, David. And you spoke a little bit there about the size of China and the diversity. You know, if you compare like Hainan Island and Sanya, it's tropical and it's
Yeah.
35 degrees all year round, and then you've got Harbin in Heilongjiang where it's minus 40 in the winter.
That's right.
Is how does that impact retailers? In the UK, for example, a retailer may well go by a planogram sent from HQ, and the way they put their fixtures, the way they have their facings and organize their shelving is decided by HQ, and they just implement it at the local level. In China, is there more power that's given to the managers of the stores that would maybe change the way they do things based on region or based on local culture?
You that's a very good question. You need to know that modern retailing in China is just very short. We have a very short history of this modern retailing. So, you know, 30 years ago, you wouldn't see supermarket with open shelves in the store anywhere in China. It's just new. The Chinese learned this from European retailers, from Macro, from Gafu, from the Walmart in the US. They learned how to manage these modern stores, but the Chinese retailers try to mimic what the Western retailers do in the stores, without really understanding of what's going on behind the stores. So let's say organizing the stores is not it's not as sophisticated in China than it looks like. So answering your questions whether there is a central planning for planogram or not, the answer is no. They just started the category management. The new wave of category management just started, I think, 5 years ago. They're learning at this moment. Retailers that have taken category management, that have started learning category management more and more every day, but yet they have to learn how to properly manage their shelves. Before that, let's say those store managers in any retail chain, they have the right and power to decide which product to be put on where, and how much faces it will be given. And even sales representatives from the suppliers has got a very strong influence. You see that those ladies are working for a supplier, but inside of a retail store, they decide that, or they try to make their own let's say space as bigger as possible every day. So that's something quite chaotic, but it's changing. Many retailers are learning how to manage their stores, manage the spaces in an efficient way, and gradually, I think, rapidly, they're adapting the method of planogram, of deciding the spaces, distribution of spaces between the products from the headquarters.
Brilliant. So for an international brand, if there is some emphasis on the local retailers having more control, and indeed local people maybe being involved in how many facings a brand gets and where those facings are, what can an international brand that isn't locally in the market do to help compete with that? Because obviously there's a constant battle going on with how many facings each brand would achieve, and importantly the position of those facings on the shelf. So what can international brands do to help nudge things into their favor?
Well, I think the best way is to develop a better relation with your retailer clients. Work together with them, not I think individually every day, but just I think some advices, some practical advices to your retailer clients on, let's say, showing the products to the consumers, to the customers of your retailers. I think for Western brand, one of the most efficient ways is to let's say to show your products to the consumers in the stores. Let them try, let those consumers get involved using the product, experience it and knowing it. If you talk to your retail clients, make them understand how useful it is, or give them some advices that you've got you've learned from Western countries. I think the Chinese retailers will be very happy to learn, and then to use those ideas to work with you. Relationship with the retailers let's say that can help them to move forward to the future, will be very helpful. Will get their trust. I mean, um, Chinese retailers are trying to learn category management, how to better manage their products. If you can share some knowledge of category management, or you use category management uh, as a language, as a common language to talk to them, they will be happy. Uh, I think using sales representatives in the stores is something getting outdated very soon, because the labor cost is getting more and more expensive. Um, my advice to international brand is that you use some methods that can help you to move to the future, or help your retailer client to move to the future. That will help both sides to make a good relations.
Amazing. It's something that I appreciate you saying, that you feel that in China that the retailers really just learning more about category management, and I feel you're obviously playing a big part in driving that forward and helping update them. But from the face of it, as a consumer, having been a consumer myself in China for many years, I've seen a radical change, certainly from the outside, of the way that retailers look and appear. They don't come across as just basic supermarkets or stores anymore. You have things like Hema, which have a very omni-channel approach. You can buy online, offline. You can get a 30-minute delivery. I think Yonghui even trialed delivery by drones in Guangzhou a few years ago. And you have people at stores which have no people working in them whatsoever, and it's all very automated. So we're seeing lots of technology come into play in retailers in China. What do you think are the technologies that are going to stay, and where do you see any new technologies coming that are going to really change the retail landscape?
In general, I think there will be some new technologies that can last long, and retailers will use them. But in the meantime, there will be something that you call new technology today will fail, will never succeed in the future. I think the point is that if you see the practice of retailers all around the world, uh, uh, those leading retailers, those let's say those big ones, those giants, they develop in a way that reflect their own background in their own country, in the mother country. For example, Tesco. They when Tesco came to China, they worked strongly with their let's say building up the system, the organizations. They use data, consumer data in their marketing very well. All those practices they I think they brought from the experience in the UK. If you look at Carrefour, they have brought China with the experience and history, let's say experience in France, and Walmart from the US. So when you look at Chinese retailers, their practices, you've got to understand from the background of the Chinese background. In the last, let's say 30 years, sorry, in the last 30 years, China has just grown so rapidly. People see those who succeeded are those who were brave, bold enough to adapt new technologies quickly. So the Chinese have a kind of, I think, let's say, uh, impression. Those who are the first to use new technologies are more likely to succeed. But the fact is not. You know, especially in food retailing in the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years, you see a lot of new things coming out. Um, People using those new things was because from the experience that in the past, those who succeeded was because they used some new things. Uh, they had never seen before. But it's a different world now. You know, let's say, in the last 20 years, most of the new things for Chinese retailers are actually things that used many times, used and tested um, by those Western retailers. It's not really real new. But today, Chinese retailers are using something really new. It has not been used by any other retailers around the world. It's not tested. It's not foreseeable. It's not guaranteed. And I think from experience in general, most of those new things will fail. I mean, they will not pass the test. So looking into the future, I'm very, I think, conservative. I don't think retail will really have a big change by using those let's say paperless technologies, drones. It's just too early. There were lots more things that we can do with the store environment. Let's say um, many more things. Let's say meal solutions. Um, a theoretical a designing of interior of your stores, marketing connections with your customers. There are many great ways that you can have a, a more efficient business rather than just using those drones, those IT technologies. I'm not a believer of that.
Amazing. I want to talk a little bit about e-commerce. So e-commerce in China is huge, by far
Yeah.
the largest e-commerce market in the world. So on the flip side of that, working with bricks and mortar retailers, how do you fight the kind of e-commerce giants? Do you have to offer different products, or what's the kind of strategy to help compete against such big e-commerce players?
I think let's say they for brick and mortar retailers in China, the reality is that they have to live together with e-commerce giants. They can't get rid of them. That's the reality. They have to live together. However, I think there are also big rooms for those conventional retailers, brick and mortar retailers, to improve their business. And let's say omni-channel is the only way that they can survive. Not only survive, but also develop. You've got to see that your customers, the Chinese consumers, are on internet, on the mobile smart end, anywhere. So brick and mortar stores, you have to be aware of to be part of that new virtual reality world. Um, but then I think there are big rooms for brick and mortar stores to improve their business for the customers to have a better experience, the food offerings, to attract those young generations. In the end, I think if you look at it from the customer point of view, they will have, let's say, they will have the kind of needs of going both online with e-commerce, but also go to physical stores for their everyday life. But let's say, for the physical life, for the brick and mortar stores, they've got to have some new way to meet the needs of the customers, to welcome the customers, to satisfy their needs. But I'm not sure what they should do, what can help them eventually. I'm just sure that they have to learn. They have to learn to let's say to offer attractive stuff for in a very efficient way for the new generation of customers.
And the new generation of customers, and from what I've seen in China, they're very convenience focused. Like, so in the UK or USA, for example, it's typical for a household to drive to a supermarket, do a big weekly or bi-weekly shop, you know, fill the boot in the car with all the shopping, bring it back, and that will
Yeah.
last for a week or 2 weeks. And in China, I think that's less common, probably partly because people live in high-rise buildings, there's less cars, there's more traffic. Mobile internet is so advanced and delivery is so fast with people delivering on scooters, so it's super quick to, you know, order online or through an omni-channel approach, have shopping delivered to you for the next few days for you know, within 30 minutes, or likewise go down out of your local living development to a convenience store and pick up some things that you need. How do those different buyer behaviors impact on the how you the format of goods, so the format of the type of brands, the products that you would see selling, and the formats that then retailers in China would look for in terms of pack sizes?
Well, I think that's a very interesting question, and the changing behavior of the let's say younger generations of customers are very interesting. I had thought many years ago when I saw that in Europe and in UK, you know, the meal replacement solutions in the supermarket. I thought this might be the future of China, maybe in 10, 15 years. That for those in those time in Europe and in the UK, that younger generation, they're not willing to spend as much time as their parents in the kitchen room every day. So they bought ready to cook those ready meals. I thought that would be the future of Chinese. But today I saw something completely different. You know, the Chinese people, the Chinese young boys and girls, they make home delivery orders just for the meal. They don't cook. They don't even spend a single minute in the kitchen room. That's very interesting. But to the question of yours, how will that impact the format of the Chinese retailers, their offerings? I think it's still in the early stages to make a judgment. I see the trend of really shaping the way that the Chinese consumers' behaviors. But I'm not sure how long will this last. Let's say the home delivery. Currently, there are lots of let's say subsidized. The e-commerce giants or the big players behind them, they pay for the home delivery cost, and they subsidize big money for the price. As I see that the labor cost in China are going up all the time, we all see that there will be a big gap of labor supply in the coming years. I think that will change in China. The current popularity of home delivery will be changed, and also the younger generations, let's say, their way of let's say having a meal, or well, let's say, at least it's still in the middle of a fast changing. I can't give a let's say a answer, a specific answer at this moment, but I think it will be very wise just to keep a close watch of what's going on and follow the trend.
Yeah, because I can imagine, and I think you mentioned it there, one of the big trends that's come out recently is like the Waimai. So in China it's or it's I guess in the West it would be Uber Eats and Deliveroo, or Just Eat, the fast food delivery from restaurants that are delivered straight to the house, which I guess does impact a lot on how people are shopping, because you know they're eating in that way food locally cooked in restaurants, which then arrive very cheaply. But it's going to be interesting with the increase in labor cost, because at the moment delivery is so cheap in China, and as that starts to change, it may make more sense to cook your food yourself at home and you know buy from the supermarket.
Yeah.
In the UK, certainly, supermarkets often have certain strategies that you see quite consistently through different retailers. One of them might be a product offering of having a kind of good, better, and best product. So a very basic example might be in tonic water. In Tesco, you might have Tesco own label tonic water, which is very affordable and kind of no frills and cheap. Then you might have the Schweppes brand, and then you might have a premium brand like Fever Tree. Do Chinese retailers have any of these kinds of set rules that they play by and tactics like that?
Not yet, but they're coming. In China, I think in let's say if you look into the past 20 to 30 years, suppliers, consumers goods suppliers, I think are more sophisticated than retailers. So you would have seen a lot of push from suppliers of products in the supermarket stores. It's not normally a rational decisions of retailers based on the calculations of customers' shopping behaviors, and then it's not the retailers who decide what shall they put on the shelves. It's more of the influence of the suppliers. But as I said, that as Chinese retailers are learning category management, they learn how to manage their shelves in a more efficient way, both for themselves and also easy for their customers to shop in their stores. I think that will change. I think the way that managing assortment in the layered ways, like good, better, and the best, will be adapted by more and more Chinese retailers in the coming years. It will be more, let's say, rational decisions rather than just the influence from the suppliers.
Okay, and just to circle back with the influencers from the suppliers, to circle back how they can influence pushing their brand in store. You mentioned that doing in-store promotions with a person, maybe doing sampling. You often see in China a person branded in Ferrero Rocher or whatever and sampling out products. Seems a very common way that's been in play for a number of years. What are the useful ways to promote in retailers that really work, and where do you see that going in China?
I think for food products, to give samples to your customers will be one of the most efficient ways to promote your product. I saw this many times. I saw in the stores that, for example, let's say the good chocolate, the good quality chocolate, are not known by every Chinese consumer. They are not sure what does it taste. Once you can let them try, they'll be more willing to buy. I think almost any food products in your stores, invite customers to try. Is one of the best ways to sell your products. I think what I've seen in China is like this. There will be more and more pressure on the supplier side to have their own sales representative in the stores to talk to the customers, try to sell the product from the sales representatives. There will be high pressure of labor cost. Yet there will be change. I've seen that from quite some retailers, that the retailer manage those personnels in the stores, and on behalf of the suppliers. I mean, the suppliers pay the money to the retailers to organize this kind of personnel to show the products, or to let's say to invite the customers to try the products. They may have one salesperson but work for several suppliers at the same time. In this way, that they use less people but more efficient to work for more suppliers. This might be, I think, a big trend in the coming years.
Great. And would the retailers have an expectation of how much, what rate of sale a brand should achieve on shelf in China? So in the UK, a very average kind of product might look selling a case a week, and if you fall much below that, then you're in danger of being delisted. And I know maybe there's the option before you're delisted to invest in promotions such as this to get the rate of sale back up again. But is there an expectation in China of rate of sale for different categories?
Yes and no. Yeah, the retailers, they check constantly the moving of their products in the stores. They try to find out those slow movers and may try to get rid of those really slow movers and to get something new to replace them. But yet it's not well organized. They're just learning some techniques like using the category management method to do a proper measurement of moving of their products. But then it's all appropriate for them to decide different moving rate for different categories. For example, a snack food obviously will be moving faster than grains. Yeah, and the beverages and soft drinks shall move even faster. It depends on the different categories. It's different from category to categories. That's true. Yeah.
Okay, and I'd imagine that would change on the season for the product as well. Ice cream will sell much quicker in summer than it would in winter. With regards to seasonality and the changes in space that's given to certain brands or certain categories, how much does seasonality impact that in China? And importantly, from a brand's perspective, if they're perhaps a seasonal product or looking just to get a listing in a Chinese supermarket, are there kind of windows, set windows that Chinese retailers usually go for that a brand can try and exploit and therefore can work out when they should start having conversations with retailers?
Yeah, sure. The biggest business season for Chinese retailers is the Chinese New Year. It comes normally in February or late January. That's the occasion of Chinese that they have family celebrations, family gatherings. Everybody goes home to see their parents to have this family time. And that's the time they spend a lot of money on gifts or even for themselves to try something new, to try new products, something good, something when they want to give themselves a treat, they will try. And at those times they buy liquors, they buy candies, they buy expensive foods. We have a kind of a saying that those 1 or 2 months will normally take 1/3 of the business, of a business turnover, but normally generate half of the profit of a retailer through the year. Normally, a retailer will plan the season, the Chinese New Year season, immediately after the second biggest season, which is the Mid-Autumn Festival. Sometime it will combine with October 1st. October 1st and Mid-Autumn Festival, sometimes we also call the Moon Festival, is the second largest business season for Chinese retailers for similar reasons like the Chinese New Year. Normally after that, which is in the mid of October, retailers started planning their Chinese New Year. That's the best time for you to talk to a retailer for some new ideas, something good, to come to their stores, get them ready to help them with the Chinese New Year season. And before the second biggest season, there is the first, which is the May 1st festival. Sometime it goes along with the Chinese Dragon Boat Festival. You know, the Chinese festival is marked on the Chinese lunar calendar. It's in a different system than you see the universal calendar. But sometimes you can certainly match each other. So let me start from the first one. The first one is the Spring Festival. We also call Chinese New Year. It comes in it's the 1st of January of lunar calendar. Sometime it happens in roughly, I think, in early February, and people plan that in the mid of October. And the beginning of October was the second largest big season. It's called the Moon Festival, and also the National Day, which is the 1st of October. Then people plan the second one, the second big season, normally in June, July, and then the last is the May 1st and Dragon Boat Festival. That people may plan it, I think, in March, April. Yeah, so let's say if you have a good product, you want to talk to Chinese retailers, the best time is the biggest the best time, let's say, for the biggest season is in mid-October. Yeah.
Amazing.
The second good time is in June and July, just for the sales, for the business season in October 1st, or the Moon Festival. And the third one is in late March and April and early April. That's the three, I think, important time, good time for you to talk to a Chinese retailer.
Fantastic. I'm guessing for brands that are new to market, they may have some extra time they need to add to that if they're, for example, going through a local distributor or local importer, to be able to make sure they can organize that part first of making sure there's product available for the retailers.
That's right.
Because some of these retailers will import directly themselves, right, David, and others will primarily buy just from local Chinese distributors.
That's right, yeah.
Brilliant. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about the margin expectations of retailers in China. If you're happy to reveal that is obviously, I'm sure, there may be some secrecy around that, so I'm happy for you to avoid the question or skip the question. But if you can tell us, what kind of margin expectations do retailers usually look for? Does it depend on the type of retailer? Does it depend on the category? And what can brands expect to be able to calculate into their value chain on the retail side?
Yeah, the general margin for Chinese retailers, and I think is roughly around 25%. For everything together, if you combine everything together, it's roughly 25%. But of course, it depends on which category you talk about. For, let's say, imported food, I think people will expect like over 20% sometime. Yeah, 20% of margin. But then it also depends on categories. Let's say for beverages, they may expect lower margins. For chocolate snack food, maybe higher margins. For fresh milk, maybe moderate. It depends on different categories and the moving, let's say, speed of those categories in your stores. When different retailers, let's say when you see different retailers, the margins, the margin level varies from one retailer to another. Normally for big national retailers, they are more demanding. They ask for higher margins. For example, if you talk to Hema, talk to Yunhui, they are not easily be satisfied with a normal margin that you can sell to a small regional retailers. That it varies from one to the other. But on the other hand, I think the cost of your supply chain, let's say the cost generated through the ways before you handed your product over to the retailer also could be different. If you work with the national ones and those big ones, your supply chain cost can be lower. If you work for regional retailers, you either need to spend more money for that, or you find a local distributor to let's say to handle your goods from the seaport to the stores. It varies again from retailer to retailer. You need to be more specific to do your calculations.
Brilliant, amazing. And in Western supermarkets, a huge percentage of the SKUs are own label. They're branded Tesco or Sainsbury's or Walmart. My experience in China is it's much less that way. You have less supermarket own label branded goods. Is there any change coming in that area?
Yeah, there was a very strong trend in the last, let's say, 3-5 years. There were more and more retailers, Chinese retailers, starting to look for private labels aggressively. Normally, I see that 5% in terms of the sales volume of private labels it's a stage. It's a stage. Sometime that if a retailer do just a normal work, if a retailer doesn't do category management properly, they can reach to 5% of their private label sales. That's what you see. Most Chinese retailers are up to that level today. But we also see a few more advanced retailers that overpassed that threshold, like Rainbow, the supermarket and department store chain with headquarters in Shenzhen. I think they have achieved more than 10% of their profitable sales. But that was because they've done a great job with their category management. They found a good way, an efficient way to grow their own label products, and there were many other retailers trying to do something similar, like Rainbow. You see more and more private label products, and Chinese retailers see private labels today, I think, in with the two things that they can be benefited. First is about a better margin. When you can eliminate the marketing cost of those brands, you obviously can enjoy a big margin. Second, it's a great way to differentiate yourself from your competitors. That's even more important. The retailer see that more valuable than the first margin point. I think the percentage of private label volume grow from, let's say, 2-3% to 5% roughly in average today, just in the time of 3 to 5 years. And it will grow really fast in the coming years. Private label is a good, let's say, areas for some of those European exporters that they want to explore the market. Work with your retailers to help them to develop let's say, private labels is a good choice.
And do you see any other big trends coming in terms of food and drink categories in China for international brands?
Yeah, well, I see, let's say, snack food. Chinese Chinese eat a lot of. It's not snack food. That's to be more, let's say, uh, uh, precise. Chinese eat a lot of things just for fun. I don't know. You know, they eat seeds, or the sunflower seeds. Um, they can do that nonstop through the whole day. Chinese eat a lot of those funny things. It's not like it's not. I think what I've seen from Western people when they eat, uh, most of the time, the function of feeding, of getting energy, is something very important. But for Chinese, they just want to have the fun of the taste of the fun of their tongues, or whatever. You know, they want to try something with a new taste, a new package, and snack food. Let's just roughly call it a snack food. Grows very fast in the in the last, let's say, 10 years. It's really a big field. The Chinese try a lot of different things. Um, and also, if you see the let's say, uh, in big cities, uh, customers pay more attention to their healthy living. Um, that food with, let's say, with healthy features, um, is also very promising in China. Um, Convenience, healthy, food safety. I think these are the most important features of food products to the Chinese consumers, and will have a big opportunity.
And do you feel, with being now in 2021, with everything that's happened with COVID in the last couple of years, there's been more of a push, more of an acceleration towards the health trend? Or has that in any way impacted the type of products that Chinese consumers are buying? I read somewhere that actually the sales of behaviour had gone up in, the rice wine in China, because when it all first started, consumers actually wanted something comforting that they felt very familiar with. So the kind of big brands that they felt safe with were going up in sales. But
Yeah.
having now the dust having settled a little bit and the world maybe being slightly different, do you see that has had any kind of impact in the type of categories or products consumers are buying?
Yeah, sure. I think uh, the, the 2 years suffering of this COVID-19 really has a big impact to the Chinese consumers, to the way they look at the food, to the way they consume food products. Um, I think safety, healthy, um, let's say, more convenient. And also Shen just mentioned convenience. So and more, let's say, accepted by Chinese consumers. Um, they they let's say they look for something that can be easily used when they're locked down in their home office, when they just stay with their own families, when they cannot travel that much. Um, yeah, I think that these changes will last even the COVID-19 is gone. It completely changed the way that people see and think of their there's a food and life.
Absolutely. And I'd like to ask you a question actually about how China is changing more broadly. So traditionally, international brands, they often attack markets like Shanghai, Beijing, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, these first-tier cities, which have a large number of consumers who on average have a higher income and more expendable money to buy more expensive imported products. As China's middle class grows, and when we say grow, we mean hundreds of millions of people entering into a more middle class where they have more expendable income in the course of just a few years, and the wealth spreads west. I know you have connections with hundreds of retailer chains also in the western parts of China or the central parts of China.
Yeah.
There's 100 cities that between them have 500 million people.
Yeah.
There's a really big market outside of just the first tier cities. Do you see this as a growing opportunity for international brands? And do you think that Chinese consumers in these cities are they more aspirational, and can they now start to afford more expensive products and would actually select international brands over domestic brands?
Yeah, well, excuse me. Yeah, I think if you see the China market at this age, you need to think about internet. Let's say in the last, let's say 10 years before, you see there were big differences of big city and small cities. People living in small cities, when they see that people living in Shanghai or Beijing, it represents something of a privilege of living in big cities. But nowadays, people travel very easily between cities. They see information on internet. That there is no barrier of information, of knowing outside the world. And also the high-speed train network, it's everywhere in China. I talked to the let's say some young people about their life in small cities around big cities. It's you can find many let's say the young boys and girls living in the small cities. They go to big cities easily just for lunch, for dinner, for party, and then back home in the evening. This is about I think if you let's say if you look at the China market, the high-speed train that connect people physically so easy, and also internet that make information accessible to people everywhere. You've got to think of it really different. It's not like I think 10 years ago. You see big cities, the first tier cities, second tier city. You've got to see the market more like a whole, let's say, integrated place with the knowledge on internet, with transportation accessibilities everywhere. I think it's a different world than 10 years ago. You've got to have something, some new way to think about the consumer market in China.
Brilliant. I think that's such a good point, and really insightful. David, it's an absolute privilege to speak to you. There's very few people, if anyone else, that has your level of understanding on the front line in China, working with so many retail chains, and is really actually changing the market in the work that you're doing. And to be able to have this conversation is a privilege. To have it in English is just something that I don't think you could really find this anywhere else. So it's such an honor to speak to you, and thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to add or say from this conversation?
Well, it's a great pleasure for me to have spent time to you talking about issues, problems, opportunities in China market, especially for international suppliers. I'm very, let's say, optimistic to the future of this world. That I believe that communications and exchange of trade is helpful both for Chinese and outside world. I will be very happy if I can help international exporters find and realize the opportunities in China, and in the meantime help Chinese retailers to get connections with outside world. It's my great honor to work with you, Anthony. Thank you very much for organizing this interview.
Thanks so much, David. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes.